Focus! Get those coordinates locked in now! Sergeant Arkhan's voice cracked through the comms, sharp as a knife, his breath ragged from the constant sprinting. The air was heavy with the scent of burning rubble, metal, and the acrid stench of scorched earth. He gritted his teeth, his boots thudding against the cracked concrete of the ruined supply depot. Around him his squad moved in silence, their faces grim beneath their helmets, their eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. They were survivors. The battle for the planet had only just begun, and already the humans were being pushed back. The Zvani had arrived without warning, their ships slicing through Earth's atmosphere with terrifying precision. The first wave had been swift, annihilating orbital defenses like they were paper, and within hours, cities had fallen to their impenetrable shields. The humans were hopelessly outmatched, their advanced weapons useless against the alien technology. The aliens were armed with energy-based weapons, their shields reflecting anything with a kinetic component, like a wall that couldn't be breached. But Arkhan wasn't one to accept defeat easily, not when it wasn't earned. He turned sharply, his visor catching the fleeting glint of movement. A small group of Zvani soldiers advanced, their towering figures casting long shadows across the ruins. Their exosuits gleamed under the dim light, a mocking contrast to the smoldering destruction around them. Their leader, a commander draped in ornate ceremonial armor, barked orders, the sharpness of his words cutting through the static in Arkhan's earpiece. "Position!" Arkhan growled, signaling to his squad. They scattered in all directions, blending with the debris. His mind raced. They were too few, too underprepared to take on the entire force. His rifle had no more rounds and his comms were dead. The only thing left on his belt was an old M1911, a relic he'd carried for years out of habit, not necessity. The alien commander stepped forward, his movements deliberate. Arkhan could hear him through his visor, the distorted words in a language that made his teeth itch. The alien's helmet, sleek and menacing, caught the faint glow of a distant fire as it tilted down toward the ground, eyes fixed on Arkhan's position. "Fool," the commander muttered, lifting a gauntlet and raising it toward Arkhan. There was no diplomacy here, no room for surrender. The alien's hands, adorned with intricate silver plating, clenched into fists. The soldiers at his side stood ready, weapons aimed in unison. Arkhan's fingers tightened around the grip of the pistol. This was it. He had one chance. The world around him slowed. Time seemed to stretch. The faint buzz of the ruined electronics near his feet, the static in his ear, the way the air tasted of fire, ash, and adrenaline. It all bled together into a single, pulsating moment. He squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out with a brutal crack, and the sound felt like it tore through the world itself. The bullet screamed through the air, faster than the alien's reflexes. It collided with the alien commander's shimmering blue shield with an impact that sent a violent shockwave through the atmosphere. For a split second, Arkhan thought it might have missed. Then the shield flickered, and the bullet kept going. The alien's head snapped back, his body crashing to the ground with a sickening thud. The squad froze, their weapons still raised but unsure of what had just happened. Arkhan stood motionless, eyes wide, his chest heaving. The commander was down. One shot. It didn't make sense. Their shields were supposed to be invincible. How could a simple bullet break through? "Did you see that?" Private Zorak whispered over the comm, his voice low, barely above a breath. What the hell just happened? Arkhan didn't answer. He was still processing it in his mind, but the moment didn't last. The sound of alien footsteps echoed through the ruins, heavy and calculated. The Zvani soldiers, stunned but not unorganized, began to advance. Arkhan's fingers found the trigger again, this time pulling it with more purpose. The bullets flew in a steady, rhythmic pace, faster now, slicing through the air with a new kind of purpose. The other soldiers around him, Zorak, Thrak, Falar, followed suit, each of them firing in sync with the knowledge that this was their only chance. There was no room for hesitation. One by one, the alien soldiers fell. The confusion spread like wildfire among their ranks as their shields sputtered and failed. They scrambled, frantic, trying to adjust, but it was too late. Human firepower, once seen as archaic, was now the answer to an alien race that had believed itself invincible. The last Zvani soldier fell to the ground with a sharp screech, his body crumpling under the weight of Arkhan's sidearm. For a brief moment there was silence, broken only by the sound of ragged breaths and the distant crackling of fires. Arkhan lowered his pistol, the weight of the moment settling on him. "We need to move," Captain Throck's voice came through his ear, steady but urgent. "They'll know we're here now." Arkhan nodded, his mind still reeling. His eyes locked onto the fallen alien commander, the one who had thought so little of them, who had assumed that his technology made him untouchable. The bullet had shattered that illusion. But Arkhan knew this wasn't over. This wasn't just a victory. It was the beginning. They had discovered a weakness, something they could exploit. This wasn't a lucky shot. It was the first of many. "We move," Arkhan ordered. His voice was steady now, but his heart was pounding in his chest. The victory felt like it was his alone, but it belonged to humanity. A single bullet had changed everything, and Arkhan had no doubt that this moment would ignite something larger than any of them could imagine. As the squad moved out, their boots crunching against the cracked concrete, Arkhan's eyes never left the wreckage. He didn't have time to savor the moment. There was more to do, more to learn. The Zvani might have been caught off guard, but they were far from defeated. And the humans, armed with nothing but outdated weapons and ingenuity, were ready to show them what it truly meant to fight. With every step, Arkhan's resolve hardened. The battle for Earth was just beginning, and this was only the first shot. Arkhan's pulse still thrummed in his ears, but there was no time to process what had just happened. The alien commander lay crumpled in the dirt, his once pristine armor now a twisted hunk of metal. But the real battle was far from over. The silence that had followed the first kill was shattered by the distant thrum of alien warships overhead. The Zvani weren't done. They had only just begun to understand what humanity could do when cornered. "On your feet! Move now!" Captain Throck barked. His voice cut through the stillness like a whip, and the squad instinctively responded, scrambling to their positions. They moved fast, their heavy boots crunching over rubble as they darted between the broken remnants of a fallen building. The air around them felt charged, thick with the scent of burnt metal and something unfamiliar, something colder. Even though the battle had only just begun, Arkhan could feel the tension mounting, like a storm brewing on the horizon. He didn't pause to look back. The sight of the dead alien commander was unsettling, but his death had been just a spark. Arkhan knew better than to dwell on it. He hadn't heard a bullet crack through the air like that in years. It wasn't supposed to happen, not against an enemy like the Zvani, yet it did. The old sidearm had cracked their perfect shields wide open. "We've got one shot," Zorak, one of the younger soldiers, muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. His words were taut with disbelief, but his eyes were sharp. He could see it too. This was their moment, and they couldn't waste it. "You've got more than one," Arkhan snapped, his voice steady but edged with urgency. He could feel the weight of what was coming next, pressing down on his chest. They'd made a breakthrough, yes, but they hadn't won. Not by a long shot. The squad fell into formation, Arkhan at the front. He didn't want to admit it, but that one shot had stirred something deep in him. The Zvani believed their technology was flawless, yet they had underestimated humanity's stubbornness, its ingenuity. The thought of Arkhan taking down their commander had been a victory, yes, but there was no room for pride in war, not when there was so much more at stake. Ahead, the distant rumble of the alien forces' response grew louder. It wasn't a surprise. The Zvani weren't the type to back down after losing one officer. They would regroup, and they would come back harder. Arkhan didn't have time to waste thinking about what-ifs. He had a plan now. As they reached a narrow alley between two scorched buildings, the silence that had surrounded them suddenly broke, replaced by the sudden roar of a dozen alien engines. Arkhan's instincts kicked in. "Take cover!" he shouted, pulling his squad into the shadows. The air was thick with the scent of burning rubber and the bitter bite of ozone. Arkhan crouched low, eyes darting between the shattered windows of nearby buildings. His hands gripped the familiar handle of the M1911, and he could feel the cool, reassuring weight of it in his palm. The alien forces were close now, their voices sharp and unfamiliar. They weren't speaking to each other. They were broadcasting across their comms, their words laced with frustration. Arkhan knew what it meant. They were adapting. Their shields had been breached, and they needed a new strategy. Their overconfidence had taken a serious hit, and it was only a matter of time before they started adjusting their tactics. Arkhan didn't plan on giving them the chance to recover. The faintest glint caught his eye, a flash of metal. He nodded once, then turned to Captain Throk. "You know what to do." Throk gave a quick, curt nod before signaling the rest of the squad. They scattered, moving with practiced precision, heading toward their assigned positions. Arkhan, however, stayed still, eyes narrowed on the alley in front of him. The sound of alien footsteps grew louder. He could hear the hiss of their energy weapons charging up, but that wasn't what worried him. It was the quiet between their steps, the planning, the regrouping. Then they emerged. The Zvani soldiers didn't look much different from the ones Arkhan had already killed. Tall, armored, their faces hidden beneath sleek helmets. But these ones were more cautious, their every movement calculated. The commander's death had sent a ripple through their ranks, and now they were on alert. Arkhan's finger hovered over the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. He needed them to come closer. He needed them to make the first move. "Wait for it," he murmured, his voice low but firm. His breath slowed, and time seemed to stretch. Every movement felt amplified, each second dragging on. The distant rumble of the alien warships outside their position was constant now, a reminder that this was just one small engagement in the grand scheme of the invasion. Then a soft scrape. One of the aliens was moving to flank them. Arkhan's eyes snapped to the right. "Zorak! On the left!" he hissed. Zorak responded instantly, his rifle raising in perfect synchronization. The first alien soldier rounded the corner, stepping right into their line of sight. Arkhan's pistol was already raised. He didn't hesitate. The shot rang out again, louder than the last, the sound vibrating through his bones. The bullet ripped through the air, straight through the alien's head. The soldier crumpled instantly, a lifeless body dropping to the ground in a heap. "Take them down!" Arkhan shouted, his voice a whip crack that snapped the squad into action. The battle exploded into chaos. Gunfire echoed through the alleyway, sharp and fast. Zorak's rifle tore through the alien ranks with ruthless efficiency. Throk's grenade exploded with a deafening boom, sending a shockwave of heat and sound through the ruined cityscape. The Zvani were scrambling now, retreating, firing their energy weapons wildly, but they couldn't match the raw unpredictability of human warfare. The alien technology, designed to anticipate every move, faltered in the face of humanity's adaptation. It was chaos, a perfect storm of human determination against alien precision. "Fall back!" Captain Throk's voice crackled over the comms, commanding and clear. The squad moved as one, pushing forward. Arkhan's gaze shifted, scanning their surroundings. The shadows from the falling debris seemed to shift with them, but something felt off. The Zvani weren't retreating like they should have. There was something else. Then, from above, came the unmistakable sound of heavy boots stomping across broken glass. Arkhan's gut twisted. The Zvani weren't giving up. They were adapting, faster than he could have imagined, and they weren't going to stop until every last one of them was dead. The squad pressed on, their mission far from over. As they pushed deeper into the heart of the city, Arkhan felt a strange sense of urgency gnaw at him. "Move! We can't stay here!" Arkhan's voice tore through the air, each word cutting through the thick tension hanging over the squad. His fingers flexed on the grip of his sidearm, eyes scanning the shadows that stretched far too long in the dim light of the collapsing city. The war had taken a new turn, and there was no more room for hesitation. The Zvani were regrouping, adapting at an alarming rate, and that meant Arkhan had to think faster, act sharper. They were losing the initiative, and Arkhan couldn't afford to let them have it for long. The last few minutes had blurred together in a whirlwind of gunfire, the sharp reports of their weapons ringing in his ears. The air smelled like burnt plastic and iron, the tang of battle settling into his skin. The distant roar of alien warships above them was constant, each vibration of their engines almost an oppressive presence. Their heavy, methodical thrum was enough to make the ground beneath them shudder, as if the planet itself feared what was to come. Throck moved up beside Arkhan, his face tight with determination. "Any idea where they're coming from?" His voice was steady, but there was an undercurrent of uncertainty. The humans had caught the Zvani by surprise, yes, but the aliens weren't just going to fold. They were reeling, but not broken. "I don't know yet," Arkhan replied, his eyes narrowed. His hand went to the comm panel on his wrist, and with a quick flick of his fingers, the laser plasma display flickered to life. A map of their surroundings appeared, showing a mix of red and yellow markers, indicating alien positions, human resistance, and newly detected targets. The lines of the map glowed faintly against the ruins, highlighting the fact that they were surrounded. "Not good," Arkhan muttered. The Zvani had established a perimeter around their stronghold, and the only way to break through would be to hit them where they didn't expect. He tapped a few quick commands into his wrist, sending the coordinates to his squad. "This is our chance. We hit them fast. We've got one shot." Private Zorak, the youngest of the group, adjusted his grip on his weapon. His eyes flickered with doubt, but he trusted Arkhan. "We haven't got much time, sir. If they regroup—" "They're already regrouping," Arkhan interrupted. His voice was low but firm. "And they'll keep doing it until they realize we're not going to just lay down for them." The sound of footfalls grew louder from behind. They weren't alone. Arkhan's pulse quickened, but his expression remained unreadable. He needed to act before they were swallowed up entirely. "Position!" Arkhan barked. The squad fanned out, seeking cover, as the first of the Zvani appeared around the corner. Their sleek, armored bodies moved with an eerie, coordinated fluidity. The sound of their heavy boots clicking against the cracked pavement echoed in the air. But it was the hum of their weapons charging up that made the hairs on the back of Arkhan's neck stand on end. "Stay low," Arkhan commanded, voice barely above a whisper, his gaze fixed on the approaching line of enemies. They moved like a unit, silent, methodical, seemingly unfazed by the chaos around them. It was unnerving. They were like a force of nature, unbroken, relentless in their pursuit of perfection. But Arkhan had seen this before. He had seen enemies that had underestimated the power of unpredictability. That's why he was here. That's why he was still breathing. The first shot came from Zorak. A pulse of energy burst from his weapon, streaking through the air with a humming intensity, striking an alien soldier square in the chest. But before the alien even hit the ground, another one stepped forward, raising its own weapon.
Arkhan's pistol rang out in response. The bullet flew faster than the alien could react, striking the shield of the approaching soldier with a sharp electric hiss. The barrier sputtered and flickered, and Arkhan's bullet kept going, tearing through the alien's helmet and exploding out the back. Arkhan's heart beat faster. He wasn't just fighting, he was winning. He could feel it. Every kill fed into the larger momentum. "Keep it up," Arkhan called, moving forward with the squad. They began to take control of the alley, using every scrap of cover they could find, their movements swift and decisive. The Zavani were relentless in their own right, though. They didn't give up easily, and they adapted quickly. Arkhan could see it in their eyes as they regrouped, their weapons shifting, their tactics evolving. The aliens, once overconfident, now seemed to be treating every move with caution. Their force fields were back up, and they were using heavier weapons, energy pulses that crackled with blinding intensity, tearing through the air in a flash of light. "We need to get to the supply depot," Arkhan said, eyes scanning the horizon as the squad continued their steady advance. The humans had lost their advantage by waiting too long, and now the Zavani were adjusting, recalculating, and preparing for the next strike. There wasn't much time. The distant crack of gunfire echoed from the other side of the city. It was a reminder that this wasn't just their fight. The resistance was scattered, fighting their own battles, but Arkhan couldn't afford to let that distract him. They had one chance to strike hard, to show the Zavani that they weren't just invincible conquerors. They were vulnerable. "Frock, I need you to move up and take the high ground. Zorak, Falar, cover the rear. We hit them from both sides." "Understood," Frock replied. His voice steady as ever, he moved without hesitation, scaling a pile of wreckage to reach a sniper position. Zorak and Falar were already in place, guns raised, eyes scanning for any movement. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were part of something larger, part of the revolution Arkhan had sparked with that single shot. The Zavani advanced again, this time in greater numbers. Arkhan's hand gripped the sidearm tighter. The air around him felt thick, laden with the weight of anticipation. The tension was almost unbearable, but he kept his focus. One by one, the alien soldiers fell to the ground, their bodies crumpling beneath the relentless force of humanity's determination. "Fall back," Arkhan ordered. It wasn't because they were losing, it was because they needed to keep the momentum going, to force the Zavani to chase them. The longer they drew them in, the more mistakes the aliens would make. The squad retreated slowly, making their way toward the main alley, using every alleyway and building to conceal their movements. Behind them, the Zavani soldiers shouted orders, their voices harsh and alien. The humans moved like shadows, slipping past their enemies and preparing for the next strike. Arkhan felt the adrenaline pumping through him, the heat of battle starting to settle into his bones. They had made it this far, but they were far from done. Every victory, every alien that fell was a small step in a larger battle, and Arkhan wasn't about to let them forget that humanity was just getting started. "What's next?" Zorak asked, his voice eager, but laced with the weariness of a soldier who had seen too much too quickly. Arkhan looked around, his eyes calculating. The war had just begun, but humanity had already proven one thing: the Zavani weren't invincible, and if they kept pushing, they wouldn't be able to adapt fast enough. "Next?" Arkhan's lips curled into a grim smile. "We take the fight to them. Harder, faster. Move. They're close. Don't let them get too organized." Arkhan's voice cut through the chaos, his breath tight as he sprinted ahead, his boots slamming against the cracked asphalt. He could hear the whir of alien weaponry winding up, the buzzing hum of their shields flickering to life around them. But this time, Arkhan wasn't just running. This wasn't a retreat, this was part of the plan. Behind him, the squad was already adjusting their pace. Zorak kept his head low, eyes darting to the sides as he advanced with silent precision, his rifle held steady. Falar moved in tandem with him, scanning the area for any sign of movement, his gun poised to strike. Throck once again had climbed to higher ground, a sniper's perch in the ruins of what was left of a crumbling skyscraper. The distant roar of the Zavani warships filled the air like thunder, but Arkhan was beyond caring about their presence. His focus was on the street in front of him, where the human resistance was holding the line. He had a single goal: to push the aliens into a corner, and then hit them with everything they had. The laser plasma display on Arkhan's wrist flickered as he tapped in a command. The map of the city scrolled to life on the small screen, showing the positions of human forces, Zavani units, and the key choke points they needed to take advantage of. It was a complex series of maneuvers, but Arkhan wasn't going to waste a single movement. Each action had to be deliberate, calculated, and timed perfectly. Zorik, Fowler, you're with me. Throck, keep the pressure on them. Don't give them a chance to regroup. We need to force them into the square near the market. That's where we'll hit them with everything. Arkhan ordered, his voice low but every word a command. His mind was already 5 steps ahead, the next move forming in his head even as the current one played out. There was no time for hesitation now. Every second mattered. The squad moved in tight formation, following Arkhan's every motion with practiced precision. They were more than just soldiers at this point. They were a well-oiled machine, and Arkhan had become its heart. He could feel the weight of their trust in him, a silent understanding between them all. Each step brought them closer to the moment of reckoning. As they neared the market square, the ground beneath them seemed to vibrate with the force of the approaching Zavani forces. Arkhan could feel the tremor in his chest, a deep, rumbling vibration that shook him to his core. The air was thick with dust, and the acrid tang of burnt concrete, the smell clinging to the back of his throat as if the city itself were holding its breath. The distant calls of alien soldiers echoed, their voices sharp and guttural slicing through the silence. The first wave of Zavani soldiers emerged from around the corner, their figures towering over the debris-littered streets. Their exosuits shimmered, the alien technology still a formidable sight. Arkhan knew they'd adjusted their tactics, but so had humanity. The humans had learned how to fight without fear, how to use their limitations to their advantage. And the Zavani, as advanced as they were, had never faced an enemy like this. Get down. Throck's voice crackled through the comms, his sniper shots already cutting through the air, each one landing with brutal accuracy. Arkhan dropped to the ground, rolling to the side just as the first volley of alien fire surged past him, their energy blasts sizzling in the air. The deafening crack of Throck's shots was a constant pulse, each one punctuating the tension in the air. Zorik, take out the lead unit, Arkhan shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. He could hear the scrape of Zorik's boots against the pavement as he shifted position, moving with practiced stealth. The young soldier was quick to respond, his rifle coming to life as he fired a steady stream of rounds, each one designed to break the alien shields. Fowler took point, charging ahead with his weapon raised, keeping the Zavani on their toes. His eyes were locked on the approaching alien soldiers, and the air around him seemed to crackle with tension as he prepared to unleash a torrent of fire. The alien soldiers were swift, adapting quickly to the new threat, but their attempts to regroup faltered. Arkhan's plan was working. The humans were luring the aliens into the heart of the city, where the terrain worked in their favor. The narrow streets, the collapsed buildings, the jagged remnants of civilization, they were all obstacles for the Zavani, obstacles that the humans could use to their advantage. Arkhan's fingers gripped his pistol as he darted behind a collapsed pillar. He could feel the weight of the weapon in his hands, familiar and cold, and a strange sense of calm settled over him. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about survival, about proving that humanity could take on the impossible and come out on top. Arkhan bellowed, his voice breaking through the crackle of gunfire. Zorik and Fowler moved as one, their bodies fluid as they repositioned, closing in on the remaining Zavani forces. The sniper fire from Throck kept the aliens on edge, making it harder for them to mount a full counterattack. The moment was fleeting, but Arkhan could feel it in his bones. The shift, the edge of victory within reach. He raised his pistol and fired again, the bullet striking one of the alien soldiers with a sickening thud. The alien staggered backward, its shield flickering before completely failing. The rest of the squad didn't hesitate. They advanced, closing the distance, pressing the advantage. Keep pushing, Arkhan shouted, the words carrying an energy that spurred the team forward. They were breaking through. The sound of enemy weapons firing grew erratic as the Zavani soldiers were forced to abandon their positions. They weren't used to this kind of relentless pressure. They were used to dictating the flow of battle, not reacting to it. The square was now within sight. Arkhan could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, the thrum of his heart pounding in his ears. The final confrontation was just ahead. They were close, so close, and then, as if sensing the imminent danger, the Zavani made their move. Arkhan's heart skipped a beat as the ground suddenly shook with the arrival of another wave, this one larger, more coordinated. Their warships had landed. The Zavani were preparing to make a final stand. Fall back. Arkhan's voice rang out as he signaled the retreat. But it wasn't a true retreat. It was part of the plan. They'd drawn the Zavani into a trap, and now it was time to spring it. The humans fell back into position, their every step calculated, their every move part of the larger strategy. Arkhan's gaze never wavered. They had one chance to hit the aliens with everything they had. The final push was coming, and this time, they wouldn't be able to adapt fast enough. The laser plasma displays flickered again, showing the incoming barrage of fire from the Zavani's fleet. Arkhan didn't flinch. He was ready. Now. Arkhan's voice cracked like a whip as he surged forward, his pulse matching the tempo of his pounding steps. The weight of the moment sat heavily in his chest, but there was no hesitation, no fear, just the deafening drumbeat of battle in his ears, and the primal instinct that drove him forward. The Zavani had fallen into their trap. They thought they were pushing the humans into retreat. But Arkhan knew better. He'd seen enough of their movements, their cold, calculated way of fighting. They were methodical. Yes, but they were rigid. They could adapt, but they couldn't change fast enough. Not against the chaos of human resolve. Behind him, Zarak and Fowler moved with the precision of a well-drilled team, their rifles raised. The air around them crackled with the tension of the moment. They'd reached the square. The aliens were just ahead, their soldiers flanking from both sides. The warships overhead loomed like black, ominous vultures, their weapons already charging for a final strike. Arkhan's gut twisted as he saw the incoming plasma fire streak across the sky like a deadly storm. He didn't flinch. The plan had been simple but risky. Lead the Zavani into the heart of the city. Draw them into the square where their larger forces would be scattered. Then, when they thought they had humanity cornered, hit them with everything. This was their final shot. And Arkhan was willing to bet everything on it. Thrak's voice crackled through the comms, steady and unwavering. Enemy flanks are breaking. They're hesitating. Don't give them a chance to regroup, Arkhan barked. His eyes scanned the horizon, seeking the incoming wave of alien forces. But something was different. The Zavani, those cold and confident invaders, seemed to falter. The realization that they were not facing a retreating enemy, but a retaliatory one, sent ripples through their ranks. And then Arkhan saw it, the gleam of alien armor in the distance. The first wave of their soldiers had made it into the square. They were methodical. They had been trained to suppress and destroy with overwhelming firepower. But Arkhan knew their greatest weakness was their belief in invulnerability, their reliance on overwhelming strength, on perfect shields, on unshakable tactics. It was all about to crumble. Fowler Zorak flanked them from the left. Now Arkhan's voice was tight but controlled. The final step was in motion. The squad split in unison, flowing like water around the rocks of their enemy's defenses. Their movements were precise but wild, the chaotic force that the Zavani never expected. Arkhan's finger tightened on the trigger as another alien soldier fell, his shield flashing and failing with the impact of the shot. Each bullet was a testament to the one thing the Zavani didn't understand: humanity's raw will to survive. Arkhan Thrak's voice came through again. Urgent. Incoming warship. Coming in hot. Arkhan's eyes snapped to the sky as a massive shadow descended. The flagship. The Zavani had been forced to deploy their final weapon. The ship was massive, its weapon systems fully charged, a burning fist aimed straight at the heart of the city. The human forces were pushing hard, but if they didn't act fast, they would be crushed under the weight of that assault. We need to take it down now, Arkhan shouted. All units hit it with everything you've got. Fowler, Zorak and Thrak understood. There was no time for hesitation. The Zavani had underestimated them. No, they had underestimated the one thing that humans could always count on: the ability to adapt and think on their feet. The alien flagship rumbled in the sky, a giant metal beast bristling with energy weapons. But it wasn't fast enough. Arkhan had already anticipated this. They knew that the key to defeating it lay not in firepower, but in infiltration. Zorak with me, Arkhan barked. He sprinted forward, his mind calculating every step as they ran toward the core of the enemy flagship. They had to make it to the heart of their technology, disable the warship's systems from within. He could hear Zorak's breath, fast and shallow, As the young soldier kept pace, rifle raised, they made their way through the broken streets, dodging fire and rubble, their bodies weaving in and out of sight. Zorik was breathing heavily now, his eyes fixed forward, but there was a fire behind them. The same fire that had burned in every human who had ever been pushed to the edge of survival. Arkhan's comms buzzed again. This time the signal from Thrak. Arkhan's "I've got a shot. Taking it. Do it." Arkhan roared, just as they rounded the corner of a collapsed building. The flagship loomed large above them, its weapons charged and glowing with a promise of destruction. But Arkhan wasn't waiting for the inevitable strike. He wasn't going to let it happen. He knew what came next, what had to come next. Thrak's rifle cracked, the sound echoing through the streets. The first wave of fire hit the flagship's shields with a resounding blast. The alien ship shuddered. But it wasn't enough. Zorik, plant the charges. Now, Arkhan yelled as he scrambled up the hull of a nearby building, finding purchase in the wreckage. His hands were slick with sweat, but his resolve was like steel. Zorik moved fast, his eyes wide with focus as he sprinted forward, placing the last of the explosives along the exposed seams of the flagship's plating. Arkhan could hear the loud hum of the ship's weapons charging again, closer now, closer than before. This was it. They either succeeded, or humanity would face extinction. Arkhan Zorik's voice was strained, but determined. It's set. Good. Now run. Arkhan yelled. They both turned and bolted. As the countdown began, their feet pounded against the ruined streets, each step feeling heavier than the last. But they didn't look back. There was no time. With a deafening roar, the flagship erupted in a storm of fire and twisted metal. The shockwave hit them before the sound even reached their ears, throwing them to the ground. The sky split open as the warship shattered, its destruction echoing across the city. Arkhan pushed himself to his feet, panting, his vision blurry from the blast. But then he saw it, saw what they had done. The Zavani fleet was in disarray, the remaining ships above Earth scattered, fleeing in chaos as their perfect warship burned. And then all was still. The battlefield was silent. Arkhan looked around at the destruction, his squad regrouping behind him. Savark stood beside him, eyes wide with disbelief. But there was no fear in his gaze, only triumph. Arkhan's lips curled into a grim smile. They had done it. They had taken on the unstoppable and shown them what humanity was truly capable of. As the distant sound of human cheers filled the air, Arkhan's voice broke the silence, low but resolute. They thought they were invincible, he said, his eyes fixed on the distant stars, but they never understood what makes us strong. And with that, the humans, survivors, warriors, and now conquerors, stood victorious. The war was over. The Zavani had come to Earth to conquer, but it was humanity that had left the galaxy trembling.